Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sabrina Coper, and on behalf of Choice and ACRL, I'd like to welcome you to today's program, The Key to Modern Resource Sharing, Whole Ebook Lending, and More, which is sponsored by ProQuest Ex Libris, part of Clarivate. Today's discussion is one in a series of sponsored webinars from Choice and ACRL that addresses new ideas and developments of interest to the academic library community. Before we get started, I'd like to point out just a few features of the webinar software. All the attendees who join the presentation are automatically muted and your cameras are off, so don't worry about generating any noise or feedback. We've got that taken care of for you. In the main area of the screen, you can follow along with the presentation materials. We are using the Q&A feature today. Please use it to ask questions of our presenters. We'll answer as many questions as we have time for at the end of the presentation, so please do type your questions into the Q&A module as they occur to you. Also note that there is closed captioning available for today's session. To toggle the automated captions on or off, please use the CC button on the bottom right corner of your screen. Last, please note that we are recording today's program, and everyone who registered should receive a follow-up email with a link to the archive version. And with that, we are ready to get started, so I'll pass things over to Judith.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. We are going to speak about some really interesting new ways of doing resource sharing. So I really hope you enjoyed this webinar. I would like to first introduce our speakers today and our guests and thanking them for joining us. So we have Ann Roll, Associate Dean of Collections and Scholarly Communications at California State University, and Chris Lee, Resource Sharing Manager at CSU as well. We have Mike Richens, his picture is not here, but he's here in presence, Director of Resource Sharing Solutions. He's our guest star. He will help us with the Q&A, and I hope that there's tons of those. From ProQuest, we have Whitney Murphy, Senior Product Manager for Books and Very Special Things. And I'm Judith Frankel, Director of Product Management for Resource Sharing Solutions at Ex Libris. So let's take a look at our agenda. So we'll have Chris and Anne tell their stories and give a presentation. Then Whitney and I will present our presentations, and then we'll have a panel. And of course, we're waiting for that very rich Q&A. So with this, we're passing it to Chris.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Lee, and I have worked many years in resource sharing as a student worker, staff member, and now I help manage the California State University Resource Sharing System. That's a mouthful. I'm here to talk about the changes in the CSU system over the years and our upcoming change to Rapido. Let me see if I can, there we go. All right, so here is the California State University system. We're comprised of 23 universities and have 24 main libraries. For a long time, the resource sharing or interlibrary loan units at the CSU libraries were loosely connected. We had some shared policies and had and continue to have a community of practice we call iSpy that helped share information at semi-regular yearly conferences. But for the most part, the individual units acted independently. Most used Iliad, a few didn't. Many participated in a resource sharing program called Link Plus, but not everyone did. This worked well for the most part, but eventually the libraries wanted to be more unified. In 2017, we went live with a unified library management system using Alma and Primo and a shared network zone. With this, the library discovery was connected. And while we still maintain individual library collections, patrons can easily search all the library collections simultaneously and request library materials with a single click. We developed shared policies for materials shared through this method, so patrons at all CSU libraries would have the same experience borrowing materials no matter what campus they were on. Patrons could request materials from any CSU without staff mediation at the borrowing stage of resource sharing, making for faster turnaround times because a portion of the workflow was now unmediated. We called this unmediated resource sharing network CSU Plus. Now, We tracked the fulfillment numbers of CSU Plus and the other resource sharing services used by libraries at the CSU and saw the use of resource sharing increase after CSU Plus was launched. I attribute this change to how resource sharing is front and center in the catalog in Primo. Whenever a patron finds a book not owned by their home library, they are able to easily request it on the same web page instead of navigating to another service. So when the libraries first started CSU Plus, some libraries set the default search to only search their local collection, while others started by searching the whole CSU Plus collection at once. It was unsurprising when the analytics showed that libraries searching the whole CSU first had more CSU Plus requests. When some libraries changed their scope configurations, the number of requests changed almost instantly, further showing how putting resource sharing front and center allowed patrons to get the materials they needed no matter which CSU library held those materials. So that brings us to Rapido. Rapido has the same benefits as Alma resource sharing in a shared network like CSU Plus, but without requiring the shared network zone. It also has Rapid ILL integrated into the system for borrowing and lending articles, something that the CSUs previously did not do through Alma. When patrons place a request in Rapido, they can easily see that it is available somewhere through Rapido and place a request with a couple of clicks. Rapido will then send the request to a library that owns the material and has it marked as available. And this is an upgrade from the CSU's previous process of requesting materials from partners, not really knowing if the item is currently available or checked out. And we hope this will further improve turnaround times. I have every reason to think it will. All right. So several CSU libraries have worked with Ex Libris as development partners for Rapido for the last couple of years. And the CSU system is now ready to finally adopt Rapido as a system. We are currently prepping to move into implementation mode next week, and we will go live as a system June 13th. We'll start with a CSU Plus pod where we will continue to use the CSU Plus name and logo, patron facing, definitely. But requests not filled by another CSU will be able to move to additional pods outside of our system. So they could move to a California pod or a Western pod, and then the United States pod, and on and on. In essence, we are looking forward to Rapido putting the plus in CSU Plus. So as I said previously, we will be looking to add pods beyond our CSU Plus pod for Go Live and shortly after. Part of my work after Go Live will be working with other libraries to agree on checkout policies for additional pods and to grow the network. So if your library joins Rapido and you want to share with the CSUs, please let me know. I'd love to talk to you. We'll also be tracking our analytics, similarly to how we did with CSU Plus. Some of the questions I hope to answer are fulfillment rates changes with Rapido, how many requests require mediation and how many automatically go to the next partner, how often do requests go unfilled in Rapido and need to be pushed to an outside system like Iliad to expand the search to new libraries not using Rapido. I'm hopeful as the number of Rapido libraries increase, the number of unfilled requests going to an outside system will decrease. But let's see what the analytics show. So that is where the CSU resource sharing community has been and why we are currently working to move on to Rapido. I look forward to seeing how well Rapido performs for our system and over the next year, letting you all see what we find. So yeah, that's what I had to share with you about CSU Plus and Rapido. Thank you. And now on to my colleague, Ann Roll from CSU Fullerton and her work on ebook sharing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. I am Ann Roll. I'm the Associate Dean of Collections and Scholarly Communications at California State University, Fullerton, one of the 23 campuses in the CSU system. And we are currently participating with ProQuest and a number of publishers in a pilot for ebook, whole book, ebook, iBook, ILL. And I'll be talking a little bit where we are in that stage. So a little bit about the Fullerton campus. You can see, going back to that map that Chris provided in his presentation, there's a star for where we are in Fullerton. We are one of the largest campuses in the 23 campus system. We have over 43,000 students. Over 40,000 students. And we are located near Los Angeles. We have one central campus library, like the other CSUs. We're a large comprehensive university. We also have 2 doctoral programs in education and in nursing. So to give a little context about what brought us to being interested in whole ebook ILL, I'm going to first give a little context about our collecting. We have had a goal to provide as much content electronically as possible for a number of years. This put us in a really good situation for the pandemic because we already had really robust electronic holdings. We've done this through a variety of methods. We have had a demand-driven ebook acquisition plan in place since 2010. This was originally with EBL, ebook library, which was then moved to ProQuest, of course. We've had an e-preferred approval plan since 2013. That's for all subject areas and has been since the beginning in 2013. We have a variety of ebook packages, both locally and at the system level, some of which, of course, are shared system-wide, and others which we've purchased locally. And our librarians make one-off selections on a regular basis. This shows the growth of our ebook collection. As you can see, from 2013 to 2020, our ebook collection has more than quadrupled. Back in 2013, we had fewer than 200,000 ebooks, but now, well, actually, now it will be even more. But by 2019, 2020, we had over 900,000. This shows our ebooks in comparison to our print books. You can see the lighter blue represents the print book collection, and then the darker is the ebook collection. And while you can see our print book collection has either kind of remained steady or slightly declined, our ebook collection has rapidly grown. And in 2019, 2020, again, notably before the pandemic, we had already exceeded our print holdings with our ebook holdings. So this may imply that we have a lack of interest in print, but we actually don't. I mean, I think we really do focus on content. So we have actively collected print throughout this entire period of time that was represented on the previous 2 slides. We definitely order print materials when they are not available electronically. Our approval plan, I said, is e-preferred. It's not exclusively e. So we do continue to actively collect print. However, we are also active weeders. So while we are both acquiring, we are weeding on a regular basis. We participate in the SCELC shared print program for monographs and have weeded things that are held by other libraries as a part of that shared print program. And we have done a lot of this weeding in preparation for renovation. This slide shows you an example of some of our before and after renovation photos. We had a number of floors prior to renovation that looked like the image on the left, that were largely entirely stacks floors. Unfortunately, I didn't have any photos that were not after an earthquake. That's why there are books on the floor. Occasionally it appears in Southern California, we take pictures when there's an earthquake, but a non-earthquake affiliated photo on the right is after our renovation that shows we still have book stacks, but we also have a variety of individual and group study spaces that are very actively used for our large student population. So what does all this mean for ILL? So our collecting history has certainly influenced what we can and can't do with interlibrary loan. As a lender, it means the larger our ebook collection is, the more and more of our collection isn't shareable. As Chris already pointed out, we are able to do chapter loans on a very regular basis, but whole book ILL has really been a hurdle. When we get requests from other CSUs, if they are interested in an ebook, we have to tell them they have to come visit us in the library, whereas we could very easily send them a print book through CSU Plus. As a borrower, our users do expect fast electronic service. The fact that we have had so much familiarity with using ebooks over the course of the last several years. And this has only grown during the time of physical library closures as a result of COVID. While before the pandemic, we did occasionally get ILL requests for print versions of things that we had electronically, and we would proceed with those requests. That has really stopped at this point. So while we had a lot of comfort already, that comfort among our users has already grown. So this is where we are with the pilot with ProQuest. It is in its very early stages. We don't have any transactions yet within the CSU system, but I want to show you a little bit about how this is working. So there are 2 CSUs participating in the pilot. So as for the pilot period, we would just be borrowing and lending with each other, just these 2 campuses. We are one at Fullerton and the other is San Diego. Each participating CSU campus has loaded the other's holdings into our institution zone so that basically at Fullerton, that means we will more easily be able to discover things that are at San Diego through our institution zone because it's just these 2 campuses that are participating. You can see in the screenshot what this would look like for a Fullerton user. This book is owned by San Diego and has a link that says ebook lending test collection for the periods of the pilot. So in this case, the Fullerton user would then click on that link, which then populates an ILLiad form. So while this probably would eventually be in Rapido, as Chris has described, for the pilot period, we're using ILLiad. And then, so the borrowing library would then send this request using ILLiad. The lending library, in this example, it would be San Diego, then goes into ProQuest Lib Central to create an access link for a 2-week loan. That link is specific to the loan for this user for this period of time. That link is put in a PDF, which then the user at the borrowing library would access among their other articles actually in ILLiad. So whereas there would be PDFs of other articles, they would find a PDF that just has the link to the ebook. And that's the end of interaction for either library at that point, really, because that link expires at the end of the 2-week loan. Of course, if a user needed it beyond that period, they could make another request. But that is the high-level workflow. And we are really looking forward to next steps with it. Right now, we have populated the catalog, but we'll look forward to there being some transactions in the near future. We're really looking forward to our increased ability to share our collections and provide additional options in an expedient way. And with that, I pass it over to Whitney.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Anne, for the introduction. I'm Whitney Murphy, Senior Product Manager on the ProQuest Books team. I am super excited, of course, to talk about our whole ebook ILL pilot. But before I go into many details, I first want to thank Anne and the other pilot participants for their support and just working with us to develop the very best pilot possible. We've learned so much about the complications and complexities around ILL and what we could do to help address it. So I just wanted to quickly say thank you to everyone who's helping us right now. It has been a lot of fun, but it's all been because of their great work. So thank you. So heading into our pilot, we are very excited to share with you some high-level data points around what we're doing. You can see here that we, as part of this pilot, we have over 200,000 ebooks from 6 different publishers. We have 4 cohorts that represent over 100 US libraries. And this is a really just remarkable group of people that we're working with. Of course, we have some breadth and depth, both in content as well as across the libraries participating. So it will help us, understand what whole ebook ILL will look in the market. We launched this on at the early start of November 2021, and it's going to be a 12-month pilot that extends, of course, until Q4 of this year. As far as our key outcomes, we are, of course, very interested in the data that was going to come out of the transactions that we'll see. Chief among them, we want to understand how much whole ebook ILL mimics print ILL. Does it or does it not, of course, are the questions. And if it doesn't, we'd like to know how it varies. So answering that will, of course, help inform what we decide as far as our long-term strategy. And then, of course, these conversations that I just briefly touched on before, we have these conversations with our libraries and our publishers together. So we have this great collaborative network of, dialogue where we talk about some really real issues that everyone is facing as we try to approach a solution. So we're going to take that and combine it with the data to help inform our strategy in the long run. And so that's, of course, our third key outcome, is to be able to propose a solution to the market. As for why whole ebook ILL, I don't really need to spend much time here. Anne just did a really lovely job in explaining the challenges that she sees at Fullerton, and it's largely echoed here. So we will be sharing these slides later. And so, of course, you can take a look as you have time. As far as our pilot participants are concerned, you can see here, who is involved. Our publishers are on the left-hand side, the 6 publishers that are participating. And then on the right-hand side are our library cohorts. And so these are the cohorts that represent the full 100 libraries across the US. Anne, again, covered the workflow, and she did a great job, of course, in describing some of the intricacies that occur behind the scenes. So I won't spend a whole lot of time here, but I do want to highlight the last 3 items in this workflow, because I think it's important to note that, our approach here means that we are trying to be mindful of access level settings and licensing for these ebooks. Because all ebooks have to be owned in order to be part of this pilot, we want to make sure that we are honoring the license that they were purchased. So when that lending library lends the title to the borrowing library in that 4th item there, the lending library will actually lose access to one concurrent license during that ILL period. And so that, of course, respects the license that they have purchased, and as well as, of course, being able to extend it to the borrowing patron. If you take it to the next step about the borrowing patron will be able to use the title within ebookcentral, viewing, copying, printing, and downloading, just as if they were part of the lending library's population. So they can enjoy full access to this title while they're in the loan period. And then, of course, when the loan concludes, the borrowing library, or excuse me, the lending library regains access to the license that they lent. So that is, of course, a really important point, because they become whole again. If the borrowing patron wishes to regain access, they can simply step through the process as Anne described in order to, find the title and request it. As for what's included and excluded, again, I won't spend much time on here. This is for your reference only. It's it's pretty straightforward. Of course, we simply want to again respect what licenses have been purchased for this ebook pilot, and of course, find a compromise that make both libraries and publishers satisfied. And then lastly, here are milestones. So we're super excited that we have reached that first gold star. We launched in November 2021. We're already seeing a lot of transactions from people finding, discovering the ebooks through the various cohorts. And so we're very excited to start tracking that information and, of course, share it as we learn more. We're going to continue these calls with publishers and libraries participating in the pilot so that we can share the information that we're learning as we gather the data. And again, so that we can just come together and have a shared understanding about what this means. And then, of course, we're going to expand our conversations with libraries worldwide so that we can bring in all of the right discovery points so that when it's time to make a recommendation about how we'll proceed, we'll be able to incorporate feedback from libraries worldwide. And then finally, in Q4 this year, we'll conclude our pilot and we'll be able to share our findings. So thank you very much. And I'm going to hand it over to Judith Frankel, who will close out the session.
Thank you, Whitney. This was fantastic. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about Rapido now, and we'll hook the whole story up. Okay, so first let's talk about what is Rapido in a nutshell. So Rapido is a discovery to delivery resource sharing platform, meaning it all starts with the user looking for a resource he needs. He doesn't find it in his library catalog. He stays in his discovery system. And then from that place, he just finds stuff that he wants. And from that same place, he can place a request and the library will provide it. It is a resource sharing platform that it supports all resource types. So we're talking about document delivery, which covers articles, digitization of chapters, etc., but also returnables. And it's a resource sharing management system. So actually you manage all of your resource sharing in Rapido. And it's a very good fit for consortia, as you heard from Chris, but also from individual institutions. And it was also built to work as a broker. I will just say that, let me move to the next slide, but I will just say that it was very, very clear from the pandemic that there was need to work on Rapido. And as Chris mentioned, he was part of our development partners program. And we could really hear the voices from the community of what was really needed in this area. There was a clear need for a new solution in the resource sharing market. We understood the reduction in library budgets, very specifically and strategically, including the area of collection development and the reduction on staffing. So it needed to be a very efficient system. And I think the community is eager to see more collaboration and more options to do resource sharing in a different way. These are the Rapido pillars. I'm going to start from the forward looking because I want to hook it to the presentation that Whitney and Anne did before. And it's really that Rapido is beyond the other things that we're doing, and we'll talk about them. We're really trying to solve those problems, those challenges that I mentioned, the staffing, the budgets, etc. But also we're trying to look, what is the future of resource sharing? How does this need to look now? And one of those areas are the ebook, is the ebook pilot. So I won't share more on this because you've heard it, but of course, Rapido has this in the work plan. As soon as the pilot is over, we already have our stories, and this is where we're going. And another area, very interesting area, is controlled digital lending. So really, the future is now. Beyond that, we're very much focused on the user experience. So how the users of the institutions are experiencing the resource sharing service. There is, from one side, the call from them to see something different as they experience in other systems that they use, Amazon, whatever, any type of modern system that they use, giving more visibility to what they're doing, giving them options to select different resource sharing options, etc. The efficiency, we want as much automation as possible. I think that if we hook the future with the efficiencies, we'll see that if we can shift to more ebook lending or more controlled digital lending, of course, we will go into a different world where there will be less need to ship physical items, etc. So I'm really excited to see how this will evolve. And today I want to talk a little bit about openness. So I want to hook it to the consortial model and how Rapido is really trying to open up not only to other Rapido users, but also to other resource sharing solutions being an open system so that we can support as many networks as we can. So we've built Rapido in a way that is really, really open. It can work on top of any ILS. And of course, we're supporting the standards. So any type of system that support these standards, we can connect to them. We will go beyond this, trying to do as many integrations as we can. Really what we want to do is have our Rapido users give their, our Rapido institutions, give their students and researchers the Rapido experience and efficiency from the staff perspective, but being able to do resource sharing with everyone. And really, the assets that we have, you know, the bottom line, where we start from, the assets are very, very powerful. So our backbone from document delivery for articles and book chapters, for example, is Rapid ILN. And there is a very big community there. I am pretty sure that many of you know Rapid. So it starts with really, you can see the numbers here, the number of document deliveries that are delivery requests that we've fulfilled. But you can see here other numbers that I cannot even say, billions of physical items in the community, the number of electronic portfolios, but most importantly, really here is that baseline of institutions that are so wide and have this variety that at the end of the day can help you provide those additions to your collection management that you cannot at this point have, or they're not the core of your institution, but they're needed for your students and researchers. So this is how I envision it, and maybe this is the picture that, this is how I would summarize what Chris is expecting from the system, and I hope he can get Ed out from it. First of all, we have the consortia, so it would be second little the second circle here. This is, you can imagine this is CSU, and of course, Rapido works very, very good with a consortial environment. Of course, it also supports institutions. And then it can open up still within Rapido to the next groups and networks that can support it. So this could be, for example, a California pod, or a North American pod, or a Western pod. And we have all of the flexibility to support the different type of networks that you want to, with the terms that you need to provide. And as I talked about the openness, and be able to then, of course, connect with other networks from other resource sharing solutions. So I really want to leave, the chat is full of questions, by the way. So with this, I think we should move to the panel, so we have enough time to discuss a little bit and then move to questions. Okay. So I am going to try to be first. Chris, I want to ask you a question. How do you see Rapido engaging with the wider community? For example, the California network or the pod?
Yeah, thank you, Judith. I see Rapido as kind of bringing the benefits of ALMA consortia resource sharing to the wider ILL community. With Rapido, we can easily request materials outside of our consortia and even see that it is held by a pod with certain estimated delivery times and checkout periods. So it brings all the benefits of models like CSU Plus and applies them to libraries outside of our network zones. This will greatly improve our services to the patron as well as streamline workflows for staff. A big role I see Rapido playing with the various libraries is leading, or at least enabling, the discussions on pods and how we work together. Libraries will need to cooperate with each other to determine pod policies, such as expected delivery times. So the community will need to engage each other and Ex Libris on this front. Ex Libris already has some good infrastructure for this communication in place with things like Illuna user groups and conferences and new ILL-focused social media platform, Circle. So I see the pods as a way of helping our regional libraries and our groups of libraries to work together more often as a community. So kind of make the community a bit tighter knit, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Okay, I have a question, and I of course will pick Anne as my person. So I know that, I spent a lot of time talking about, the technological aspect of it, and, simply like, what will it look like in terms of the functionality for this pilot? But I was wondering, from your perspective, are there other elements of the pilot that you find critical or important?
I think one of the things that has been most exciting about this pilot, even in its early stages where it is now, is the collaborative nature among ProQuest, publishers, and libraries, and each of those entities being able to talk about their interests as well as their concerns, and be able to come with something that works for all parties involved. And so I really hope that collaborative nature can continue beyond the pilot, and that the publishers involved will be happy to continue to allow ebook ILL. And so I think the collaborative nature of it has been especially exciting, and probably one of the biggest successes even so far, even before a transaction.
Yeah. Oh, I love that answer. I mean, I agree. It's been a lot of fun. And I also, simply appreciate the fact that everyone who's been involved has been really open about sharing their thoughts and concerns, and it's just kind of it's a frank discussion, but it's led to some really early wins. So I'm glad that you highlight that. That's good. Judith, before you can jump in, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Yeah, put you on the spot too. So I know there's a lot of chatter about controlled digital lending, and occasionally I'm asked to explain, how controlled digital lending looks, as we're still trying to sort out this whole ebook ILL pilot. Do you have a perspective on it, of how they might intersect or how they might just run in parallel?
Okay, great question. Thank you, Whitney. Actually, this is an important question for me because I do want to pinpoint a little bit about the similarities and a little bit about the differences. While they seem like the same animal, maybe they belong to the same family brand, they're really, really very much different. I think they tend to be put together because they're really an alternative to the classical resource sharing model of physical books. So when people talk about ebook lending and controlled digital lending, they're both in digital/electronic format, and thus they seem to be confused. But we need to understand that basically there are some even legal differences between them. For example, controlled digital lending means that a library has acquired a physical copy legally, either by acquisition or as a gift, or any form of legally acquiring the copy. And then it creates a digital copy out of this physical copy, but it needs to respect the loan-to-own ratio, meaning that if the library only has one copy, that there is only one digital copy that can go out to a patron, and the physical copy needs to stand behind the scenes. One very interesting thing about this whole controlled digital lending thing is that, for example, in terms of copyright, many institutions are taking a position where if there is an ebook, if there is an existing ebook, they cannot actually do controlled digital lending, for example. So here you see where things start to get a little bit complex. And as you presented today, when we talk about ebook lending, it is a licensing issue, subscription, the providers are coming into place. So maybe they're similar in the sense that they're different than physical. Maybe they're similar in the way maybe you get a link to access them, but they're really two very different things. So thank you. And I think this is a great opportunity to move to our questions because we have tons of questions. So Mike, do you want to?
I'd love to, but I had to drop. I lost connection and I don't have access to the questions anymore. So I don't see them.
It's okay. Okay. We have many, many questions. I don't even know where to start. So I'm going to take a look first. And there's a question for you. Okay, so I'm pitching this to you. Do you negotiate licensing agreements to permit interlibrary loan of ebooks? If so, can you describe the process?
Well, for this pilot, that because of the collaborative nature already that I mentioned, that this was a partnership among the libraries, ProQuest, and the publishers. So the short answer is no, we didn't go out and negotiate with these specific publishers or with ProQuest. So I think that whereas I know there are libraries that certainly have done that for publisher platforms, for example, but we have not done that, but that's part of the reason why we were excited to participate in this pilot. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Whitney.
Yeah, I mean, again, yes, you've highlighted the critical component here, which is that this is the pilot, we're trying to establish like a minimum viable product. And so, at this point, everyone's just kind of collaborating without requiring additional outside licensing requirements. Obviously, the key feature about a longer term product will decide how that looks going forward. But for now, the publishers have been great about just expanding access to their titles for the purposes of this pilot.
Perfect. There is a Rapido. There are tons of questions on the ebook, so we'll cover this with depth. But there's a Rapido question here. Does Rapido only work with other subscribing libraries in the pods, or can requests still be sent to non-participating libraries as ILIA does? So maybe Chris, you want to answer a little bit, and if you need me to jump in, let me know.
So Rapido can also work with non-pod libraries in a couple ways. I believe we have had some conversations about making kind of some pods for non-Rapido where like some of the members are in a pod and some of the members in it aren't. So for instance, like we could do a California pod where not everyone in it is actually using Rapido, but the people using Rapido will, definitely have all the Rapido functionality, the extra bells and whistles that come with that. But also like with Rapido, like the way we're setting it up is we're going to have our, we're going to do our CSU Plus in Rapido and work with other partners who are on Rapido in those pods, but we can also have it push out to like Iliad as a last resort for things that for partners that are way out there, not on Rapido, and use that kind of that database, at least while Rapido grows. And you can also use Alma resource sharing on top of it. So like we have a few partners in the SUNY system who we are kind of piloting a program of doing Alma resource sharing with people outside of our network zone. So we can have, it'll go through Rapido and then the request can go into the Alma resource sharing with the SUNY system, and then it can move to Iliad as a last resort, and all those things kind of connected. So you can connect it with other systems easily. We've tested it out. It works great. It just is like rapid ILL, the Rapido partner, then the next rota, then the next rota, then the next rota. So that's kind of how it goes.
Thank you. Okay, I'll ask a question, and I think Anne and Whitney, you'll need to fight for it. Is there anything preventing users from sharing the, I'll ask two questions, sharing the 2-week link with others, and why was it decided that the loan would be 2 weeks?
Andy,
You go ahead, Whitney.
yeah, okay, all right, I won't make you answer these two. So at this time, no, there's nothing that prevents that user from sharing the 2-week link. In theory, it is a token URL, so it is set up so that, you know, there is, you know, that element around it that is designed to make it harder. But that is absolutely one of the things that we'll have to close off, you know, as an open question as we move this along, so that we can prevent that going forward. As for the 2-week loan cycle, you know, we selected that just after some conversations, of course, about what would be acceptable from the library's perspective as well as the publisher's perspective. So it was designed to, again, just kind of test out this pilot process. The publishers, as I've mentioned, they are granting us the access to these titles. So there's, you know, the element of just trying to respect, again, the baby steps as we move this along to a more scalable solution.
Excellent. I have another question here that I want to ask you guys. Can the lending library restrict the ebooks being loaned to those that have unlimited simultaneous users? We might not want to loan those where we only have 1 or 3 simultaneous users.
Anne, do you want to take that?
Well, I mean, right now, I guess it's a question for you if you can limit it to only those, Whitney, but it's right, but all of them are available for potential ILL, right? And I know there have been pros and cons discussed, but I mean, on that note, I will say, if it is a single user book that it basically mimics print ILL to me. So that just as if your print copy was loaned out to another library, it would be the same, that your users wouldn't have access to it during that time period. So, but as far as limits that you can provide, I'll let you answer that, Whitney.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, you're right. So as far as the functional limitation on the pilot, there is no such limit right now. It can be 1, 3 user, non-limited or non-linear or unlimited. But, you know, I was thinking, of course, yeah, as Anne answered, that there might be some selections made on the library side about what to include or exclude. And of course, that is entirely up to the participating libraries to decide what they would like to have as part of the pilot.
Okay, there's a question that I would like to answer regarding Rapido and consortia. So the question here is, what if only some libraries in the consortia subscribe to Rapido? Will that not work in NC, but more like Rapid ILL, independent from the NC? So the answer is actually that we have very different options and implementations of Rapido. CSU is a very specific one where all the members went to Rapido, which makes it very easy in the sense that they have their own pod with their own terms, and it's I would call it a private pod that suits the needs of the consortia, and they all work very neatly. And it's what we call, it will be for this specific consortia, their first priority, because first you want to go into the consortia. But we also have other types of consortia where we have only members that have started to move, and we also know how to support that from Rapido, understanding that the consortia has a specific way of working, but not everyone is on Rapido, and this is of course supported in a very different way. I cannot go here into all the details, but it is possible, of course, and we have many consortia that have started in this way. Okay. let me see if I can. There's so many questions, guys. We'll need to follow up.
There is a question that seems quite popular, Judith, about limited access and what happens to concurrent licensing during it. So going back to that workflow slide, that unlimited access is unlimited. So there is no there's no deduction of concurrent licenses when it's being loaned. So for those titles that are part of the pilot where an unlimited license is owned, there is no real impact on the lending library upon lending the title to the borrower. So I hope that answers the questions. I saw that that was quite popular.
And I saw another popular one, which is whether the ebook ILL will only be supported by Rapido. And I know the answer is no, even being the product manager of Rapido. So the answer is no. The pilot, as Anne showed, is currently she's testing with Alma and Iliad, etc. So the idea really here is, of course, there is a very tight integration with the systems that we work with, but it's a more general thing. And maybe Whitney, you want to say something here?
Yes, yeah, it's really echoing, Judith's, statement. As we design this product and we think about it long term, we want it to work, of course, with Rapido and Rapid ILL, to the extent, that we can integrate those. But we're also very open to working with any other ILL systems out there so that, we can, we can get to a wide base of users. And I know, of course, that's important to the Rapido team that as other vendors develop a whole ebook solution. Obviously, you're not just limited to working with ebookcentral, although it will be amazing, but also to anyone else who might develop one too.
Since I talked about openness, I see another question here relevant. It's a question regarding will reshare integrations be in the roadmap for Rapido at some point? So I do want to mention here that we have some customers that are part of reshare networks already. And we work very closely with reshare, and we already have an integration. So we are, and we'll continue to make it work even better. The idea really that we want is that you can work with any network that you have and make it as smooth as possible. So that integration already exists. Let's see.
Judith, I see a question that's near and dear to my heart, and I think also to Anne. So I'd like to offer an answer first, but then I'm going to hand it over to Anne to provide maybe a fuller answer. The question is, was there pushback from publishers? And actually, no, not at all. From my perspective, I think we all recognize, no matter where we're sitting in this equation around whole ebook ILL, that this is out there and a gap in terms of services and being provided. So as we were chatting with publishers, I think they were actually somewhat relieved that we were willing to do the work to make it possible from a technology perspective, because they are also pressed often for an answer in response to it. And so I found them to be quite accommodating in their openness. And so, Anne, based upon our conversations that we've had, what can you share?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said, Whitney. I think that also one of the things that was came out of some of those conversations, and it was nice to just have very open conversations among libraries and publishers on this. And I think that as some publishers noted, oh, this is going to help our content get out there more, which was a really nice comment to hear. It's like that this is some of our content that a library has acquired, and this will increase the readership of that title. And so I think that as we continue to have those conversations and as we have some more data to look at, I think that those kind of conversations will continue. And the open aspect of conversation has been really good as part of this.
There's something interesting here. Will this pilot include titles purchased previously or only during this pilot period? How is that going to work?
Sure, and I'm going to join it up with to respond to another kind of central theme I was noticing. So this pilot will work with both titles that were previously purchased as well as those that are purchased during the course of the pilot. So as Anne pointed out, she's e-preferred. She will invariably acquire some of these titles along the course of the pilot. And as soon as they are owned and not in an unowned DDA pool or through subscription, they can be converted over to the pilot. It is limited to ebookcentral titles, so we will not include EBSCO titles in direct response to one of the questions. And it is hosted, of course, on the ebookcentral platform. And as we think about how we can approach more flexibility over the long term, that's a longer term goal right now. Again, we're just looking to establish what the MVP would be so that we might be able to get this moving forward in a broader capacity.
Excellent. Okay, let's see if you guys see another question that your heart wants to address.
So there's a question about the hold queue if all ebook copies and user slots are in use. And so just to answer that, we do not have that functionality now on the ebookcentral platform. That is a commonly requested feature. And actually, I will throw in a quick plug for our idea exchange site. I can post that in the chat where you can upvote desired functionality. So if we were able to put that in, which I know it's a common request, then that would extend, of course, to the ILO pilot as well. But for now, because we don't offer it on the central platform, we cannot extend it to the ILO pilot.
Can the PDF be printed by the borrowing library patron?
Yeah, so there are two answers here. You have the ability to download a title. If it has DRM, then the patron will have to use a platform like Adobe Digital Editions in order to open it. And of course, it will be and circulated with the DRM and expire after that 2-week window. If it's a DRM-free title, then they can download the title, of course, as a PDF and take it with them. They can also print out chapter level PDFs as part of their interaction with the title.
While there are a few exceptions, which you may have on the tip of your tongue, Whitney, but largely the user can do what they would normally do in the ProQuest ebook platform. Like if it was a book that they had in their own library collection. I know there are a few exceptions to that. But yes, if the library allowed, if they can download, but again, this is a 2-week loan, so it does have those limits on it.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. That's absolutely right.
How does the mechanism for renewal works? Let's say they have it for 2 weeks. You mentioned that, and Anne, you mentioned that that if at the end of the period the link doesn't work anymore. So will the patron be able to renew after the 2 weeks? How does that work? Requesting again, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
Request it again.
Right. So they have to step through the process once more.
And they would get a new access link at that point.
Yep, great point. So it would generate, as Anne said, yep, a brand new link. So the old one has expired, is no longer usable. So we'll just refresh the link and extend the access.
Excellent.
I also,
Yeah, go, Mike, please.
I was
go.
just going to say is maybe one last question. I like this question for Whitney. When do you think this you might expand this trial out beyond the USA? We would be interested in participating here in the UK.
Yeah. So actually, I want to address that. I'm so glad you asked that, Mike. I didn't ask him to do this.
The one question I could see.
Yeah. So the reason for the US only cohort, we opened the doors to these conversations about who would be interested, and I have to say I was truly humbled by the demand to participate in this pilot. As you can see, we quickly scaled to over 100 libraries, which far exceeded my expectations. And so then, unfortunately, we just had to slow it down and close the door on the pilot part. So please, I'd love to speak to you about your needs about interlibrary loan for whole ebook ILL. We will have a firmer decision about where we're heading towards the end of this year. So stay tuned. We'll share more details as we go through the year. But please, I would love to speak to anyone, and I will put my email in chat. And please reach out to me so that we can have a conversation about what you need to see for this product.
Great.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Hey, I think we're at the end of the hour. So thank you so much to our speakers for taking the time to present today, and thanks to our attendees for your very attentive questions. I'd like to remind our viewers that we did record today's program, so be on the lookout for a follow-up email from Choice and ACRL with a link to the recording. Also, leave a few minutes after the presentation to fill out a brief survey. We'd really appreciate it. I think Lynette dropped one, and then Choice ACRL also has a survey. So thanks again to all of you out there for joining us. We hope you learned something new from this session, and we hope to see you again in the near future on another webinar.